Welcome to the recording for week 5 for audio engineering. And you can see that week 5 we're going into the section 2 unit, which is called recording audio. And there are 6 lessons. So however you design this work is up to you. But of course you'll complete the Class Connect write-up. You'll also do the learning plan activity, and I'll talk about that shortly. Finally, you have the study questions, the quiz, and assignment 2A and 2B. So now, as we get towards the end of this class, we're doing a unit per week, so the work is going to be stepping up a little bit. So that is all of week 5 work. So as I go down to week 5 in section 2, first thing I want to show you is my finishing plan. My finishing plan, you simply answer these 7 questions. To get full credit for this, answer them as text in the Dropbox. Do not attach a file, but answer them completely. What is your current grade, percentage, and points earned? I want both of those, the percentage and the total points you have earned so far. What grade percent do you want overall? Do you want 82%, 85%, 90%? Tell me what you want. So answer all of these questions exactly, please, to get full credit. As we go into section 2, I'll pull up the Class Connect write-up, because of course you always want to look at the questions. So explain how analog recording is done, who invented the first photograph, when and what phonograph, when and what song did he record. Give an example how a musician would use overdubbing, but not the same example as the presentation. So we'll go right down into section 2. So here we're going to talk about recording audio. Learn about analog and digital, different types of studios, echo effect, reverb, etc. Audio recording. So audio is recorded using an analog. It's recording using an analog device. An analog device means that the reverberations of the sound waves are recorded directly onto the device. So that's how an analog recording is done. The vibrations are recorded right onto the device. Now, before there was recording technology, then of course musicians, they would write down notes and things like that, but people had no way of listening to or recording music or listening to recorded music. And then mechanical audio devices came around. Look right here in the 9th century. It was a water-powered musical organ, so the water would spin cylinders that had pins on them, and then there were pieces of metal that would make sounds. So that was a device that could record sound. Then in the 12th century, it was improved upon. So you can see that musical devices have been around for a long time. But then when you talk about audio recordings, first one was in 1860, and this is amazing. You could listen on phonograph, and that would record the vibrations onto paper. And scientists use a computer to actually record these sounds or to play them back. Even though they were created before, they could never be listened to until a computer was able to do it. The first phonograph, 1877, Thomas Edison. First phonograph, he recorded Mary Had a... So he would record and then he was able to play it back on this phonograph. That was the big issue. You could record things, but then how did you play it back? And he did his on wax cylinders, because the vibrations would be recorded into the wax, etched into the wax, and then you could play them back. Go through that practice. Then, of course, we went to vinyl, so we went from the wax to vinyl, and of course, your parents probably have records around. You might have some records around, and that was the movement of the wax cylinders that had grooves in them to vinyl records that had grooves in them. Of course, the record player, and this talks about the 5 different parts to a record player, so you might want to just look at those parts. So practice finding a record player. The grooves. So if you look at a record player with magnifying glass, you can see the grooves, and the grooves are where the vibrations of the sound are. So the bumpiness of the grooves makes different sounds. That's what you hear. So how records are made, so you can see that once they make a master disc, then they just stamp it. So you can make copy after copy after copy after copy. So it's very easy to make those copies, isn't it? Then there's magnetic sound recording. So this is taking sound waves and magnetizing the recording device is magnetized. So in the early days it was a metal wire. In more recent times you could use magnetic tape. And of course magnetic recording is also used on some more modern devices. Tape recorder. There's a tape recorder. You see how that's done with the magnetic tape, magnetic fields, the recorder head, etc. And if you ever take a cassette player apart or VHS or something, you can kind of see how that can read the magnetic tape. And that's how VHS works also. Reel-to-reel tape, that was kind of a step up from certain types of recordings. So they would just use magnetic tape to record sounds directly onto the tape. Now overdubbing. Overdubbing is where you record different parts of the music and put them together. So like Les Paul, he'd record himself playing guitar, then he would record himself playing guitar with recording playing in the background. So that way he could put down two different layers at once, but he'd be the same artist on both layers. Multi-track tape recorder, so that's just another, an improvement on a device. And you can see that Les Paul was really the first person that did lots of different, new technologies with music and recording and things. So that's how when you multi-track, that's how you end up getting 8-track tapes. And your parents or grandparents probably had 8-track tapes in their vehicles. Professional analog tape recorder. So you can see that you record in a number of ways. You take it from this professional recorder and then you can put on a cassette, record, reel-to-reel, whatever you want. Compact audio cassette. So of course some of you probably know about these. You might still have some, and those are really nice because they're extremely portable. They're also inexpensive and just easy to use. Of course, the biggest issue was that the audio tapes, if you stretched them out or something or played them too much, then the sound would go bad. Analog recording technology. So the phonautograph, as we talked before, which was right here, and many different types of tools were used for analog recording. A lot of disadvantages. If you copy from one to another to another to another, it degrades. Then your feedback. So that means that the sound isn't exactly right. And of course, physical transportation of the devices that you use. That's a drawback. So if we go back to the Classic Connect write-up, explain how analog recording is done. It talked about that, who created the first phonograph, talked about that. Example of how a musician would use overdubbing, talked about that. But you're going to do a different example. Main advantage of digital audio recording, explain how it is that we cannot actually hear digital audio. So digital audio is when it's changed into patterns of numbers, the music is. Now one of the greatest advantages of digital audio is it can be copied without degrading the sound. So you can copy, 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 and your sound essentially stays the same. So that's the biggest advantage. And some of the things that you're familiar with, of course, the CD or the compact disc for music. I mean, it was magnetized to record it, and that's a great way to listen to music because there were no mechanical pieces. It was just light that actually read it, so it would not mess up the device. Whereas if you had a record, your needle could mess up a record. The mini disc, of course. So like Discman and things like that, some of you are familiar with those. Rotating head digital audio recorder, so a higher end audio recorder just to change in technology. Digital audio tape, again, a change in technology, going from regular cassette tape to digital audio tape. Half the size of cassette, hold about twice as much music. Modular digital multi-track, so you can see just all these advantages to music, or advances in music, I should say. Samplers, that's something that records and plays back the sound. So samplers are what audio technicians can use to adjust sound. Hard disk recording, that would be recording right onto the hard disk. Of course, you can record so much on, back in the day you had 80 gigabyte, now you have 1,000 gigabyte, which is a terabyte. So you can record many, many thousands of tracks of music. So you see some advantages to that. Digital audio workstation, so that's your computer with the proper software and such. Hard disk multi-track recorder, so kind of a mixture of the hard disk recorder and the multi-track machines. Portable studios, that's using your laptop and having all your tools and technology right there. Flash memory, of course, great way to save audio files. A handheld recorder, flash device, so this would record right onto use the microphone to record right onto the device. So digital technology, what it does, records the signal, then converts it to a digital signal. Then the digital signal has to be is converted into numbers. Now the thing about all this is that once it's converted into numbers, then it has to be converted back into analog so you can hear it. So that's the thing about digital, is it goes through a digital process, but it always still has to convert to analog so you can hear it. So that's what I mean by you cannot hear digital. Like right here, before you can play back digital audio, it needs to be converted back to audible analog so you can actually hear it. So it'll go through the speakers. So why digital audio? You can see the different reasons. It's cheap, recording technology isn't limited by the hardware, easy to copy, easy to share, easy to edit, etc. Okay, the Class Connect, let's see here. Main advantage of digital audio, we talked about that. How's it we cannot hear digital audio? Talked about that. Define what a recording studio is. So here we are. So acoustics, this is all about sound. So acoustics, acoustic engineer, the room acoustics, how sound sounds, how sound travels in a room. But a recording studio is a building or a set of rooms designed to record only the sound you want and leave out the sounds you don't want. You can see there are 4 different types of studios. I'm just going to skip through those. You can look at those yourself. Practice to see if you know which the different studios are. Different rooms in a studio. Control room, machine room, etc. So go through these just to see what different types of studios or different types of rooms studios have. And a lot of the equipment in a studio. So click through each of these to see what the different pieces of equipment are, please. Now, I'm not going to show them all in my explanation. But here's a fun activity. See if you can drag and drop the different pieces into the right place. So let's see how you can do on that. So digital studio, again, talk about the location size, the different traps that you would have in a digital studio. So that was lesson 3. Now we get into lesson 4. On lesson 3, define a recording studio. We did that. Lesson 4, explain how an echo works. So lesson 4, as we start talking about echo, you're going to actually start doing some work with Audacity. So you'll open a file. And of course, hopefully you have the student resources folder. You've downloaded that and you have all those files. This talks about acoustical problems, and you're going to actually go in and create some different acoustics. Well, an echo is a sound wave bouncing off a surface, and the way it works, it bounces around until the sound wave has nothing else to bounce off of, or until it decays or loses all of its energy. So that's how an echo works. And you can hear echo in this sound shot. So practice silence generator, that's a part of Audacity, so you'll do some practice with that. So this is all Audacity work you're going to be doing. Echo commands, you're going to set some echo on a soundtrack. You're going to make an echo. Save your file with the correct name. It tells you exactly what name to save it as. In lesson 5, reverb. So let's go down here and look. Explain the effect of reverb. So you're going to open up a file. Make sure you open the one that they tell you to open. You're going to generate some silence in it. Then you're going to do reverb. In reverb, the effect is that the sound bounces around the room until it completely dies out. So really what reverb is the sound of all the echoes that a sound makes bouncing back from different directions. So reverb can be an echo of an echo of an echo. But this is really the effect of reverb right there. So you can hear reverb if you play this. So practice a little bit there. Now you're going to do some reverb. So you're going to work through this activity doing some reverb settings and see what reverb does. So go through that completely, get the work done properly. Make sure at the end you save the file with the name they want you to save it as. So here you're actually adding the reverb in. And then finally, lesson 6. Scroll down here. What is leakage? Give an example of leakage different from the presentation. Explain what a room's sound sweet spot is. So leakage is when a sound you don't want gets into your recording. So an example, an unwanted sound from a street, so like maybe a car driving by or something like that. So the recording, record picks up other things in the microphone rather than just the intended instrument. This guitar with vocal leakage. If you pay attention, you can hear a little sound that shouldn't be there, something sound other than a guitar. Some examples of leakage, you can play those to listen to the examples. Standing waves, so it talks about waves that just go back between two parallel walls. And some ways you can fix it by putting irregular shape. Sometimes they'll put foam on the sides of the walls, so that'll baffle some of those standing waves. The noise floor is the mechanical sounds of electricity powered equipment in a building. So you get those noises, even though they do happen in the background of recording studios. Frequency balance, so this would be putting balance between the sound, the devices that play your sound, so you can listen to those a little bit. And of course, you want the frequency to always be in balance, right? Control room frequency balance. So if we look at this, so your dead end, when you play this sound, you don't hear it very well. Then the live end, you can hear it pretty well, but not great. But your sweet spot is right where the two angles, the two sound producing components, right where they meet. So that's what you want to think about. You can see those two things are going to intersect right there. So it's where the different sound devices where they all come together where they meet. So that would be like in your car. Now, if you're sitting in the back seat of your car and you adjust the left and right and the front and back on your CD player or your MP3 player, whatever it is, it's going to be different adjustments if you're sitting in the back seat than if you're sitting in the front seat. So your sweet spots are different, so you can adjust the speakers a little bit. Okay, so that's all. So you'll go through those work. And there's the career connection. And actually, I'm going to put in an extra question for the career connection for the Class Connect write-up, similar to what we had last time, so you'll need to do that. And then, of course, as always, once you do all of this, then you have assignment, and then the assignment 2A, assignment 2B. And of course, the quiz and the quiz preview. And a study question. So there's quite a bit of work for this week. So make sure you get all that stuff done. Make sure you get it all turned in. And I look forward to your work coming in. Bye.